Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 11 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Larry Oberly, the CEO for SpeedPro Imaging. And SpeedPro Imaging is the nation's leading wide-format printing and graphics franchise. Through extreme resolution levels and unparalleled color matching technology, SpeedPro Studios provide innovative marketing solutions to elevate businesses nationwide. We're going to talk to Larry about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 11 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Larry Oberly, the CEO for SpeedPro Imaging. And SpeedPro Imaging is the nation's leading wide-format printing and graphics franchise. Hi, Larry. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Marty. Great to be with you here this morning.
Oh, thank you, Larry. This is my pleasure. We always like to ask our guests where you're calling from today, Larry.
I'm calling from my office in our home office in the suburb of Centennial, which is a suburb of Denver, Colorado.
Ah, fantastic. How's the weather out there today, Larry?
Oh, about 90 degrees, sunny. It's what what we live here for, is beautiful days like today here.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's fantastic. It's a beautiful place. And, it's interesting because the company originally started it was Canada, isn't it, Larry?
Canada, and then moved to Arizona, correct. So it's got its roots, and there's a sister company called SpeedPro Canada that has about 50 locations still based up in Canada.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about, some of the services that SpeedPro Imaging provides, Larry. I've been following SpeedPro Imaging for such a long time now, so I'm very familiar with the company, but maybe you could talk to our listeners about, some of the services you provide.
Absolutely. Let me talk about SpeedPro. We're a large format printing company, and so we're a franchise company, and we basically help our customers do more business with their own customers from the marketing point of view, and we help our clients also change the culture within their own businesses. And so I guess I think of us as a light manufacturer where we produce, high quality customized large format graphics, and we print and design to solve our clients' problems and challenges, and most every one of our projects is customized and built through a client consultation. So we're not kind of cookie cutter. We're a one-off, specialized type of print company.
I would say this is a fun business, Larry, isn't it? I mean, for a specific type of franchisee, because really you're dealing with. I imagine your main customers are, I guess we could call small to medium-sized businesses. I guess it could be bigger businesses as well. But would you say that that's really your main client?
I would say any business, whether that be a behemoth like Amazon and Google to the local mom and pop company in the local market.
That's fantastic. And, since, as I mentioned earlier, I've been following SpeedPro Imaging for a long time now, and I've seen the growth that's taken place in the organization, Larry. How many locations are you up to currently?
We have 135 in the United States, and like I said,
Wow.
SpeedPro Canada, sister company, has about 50 locations there.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about your background, Larry.
Sure.
When did you join the company?
Well, I've only been here 6 months, so I joined in November of 2017. So I've been spending my time drinking through a fire hose, and I think that period is kind of done. And now I think I know what I'm doing.
That's great. What was it, Larry? That drew you, to SpeedPro Imaging. I'm sure there was something that really stood out with your organization. What did you like most?
Well, I love B2B. I really love B2B businesses, and that's just something special for me. I was in the consumer business before many, many times, but there's just something special about working with other business owners, trying to attract their own set of customers as well and going through those kind of challenges. And I also like this entrepreneurial model. We're very entrepreneurial. We're not cookie cutter at all, and so every day is different. And so those are the kind of things that really drew me here.
That's great. I've always said, if I ever got into franchising, this is the type of franchise I would get into, Larry, because like yourself, I'm always drawn to, the B2B crowd. And, it's a different model too, I guess, in the sense of, looking at like hours and things like that. It's not like, a retail model or anything like that, So, I've always been drawn to or interested in this type of franchise. If you were at a franchise show, Larry, and someone came up to your booth, a prospective franchisee, how do you typically describe the SpeedPro Imaging franchise? I'm sure it's a little bit the way you just described it to me, but anything different?
Well, I think I would probably start with our mission and vision. And so what we do is try to partner with our businesses to achieve success through innovative visual solutions. And so that's kind of where it starts. We're all about what meets the eye and what's going to attract people to maybe make decisions based on emotion or things like that, psychology.
Right.
And so that's a really big part of us. And then we want to be the leading visual solutions network and try to really push on our innovation, our support, and our service to really be sure we build great bonds within our existing clientele and make them want to come back and use us over and over. But our focus is really large format graphics. And we serve multiple high-value verticals and specialties, such as, I'll just read a few of them off. I mean, floor, ceiling, wall graphics, commercial signage, trade show displays, environmental graphics, vehicle wraps, and a whole lot more. So, we're a large franchise organization that specializes in B2B. And I think, again, we're very attractive to entrepreneurs who don't want that grind of hundreds of customers walking through their store 7 days a week.
Sure, of course. Absolutely. I think that provides a certain lifestyle for your franchisees, so and I think that's fantastic. The technology, as you said, you got this information almost like it was coming through a fire hose, Larry, but the technology in your business has really, advanced. If you look at the history of your industry, the technology has really had a big impact. So how has technology really played a role in the business today with SpeedPro Imaging?
Well, technology is really about the product it's going to put out and then the efficiencies, okay? And so I think our business is really a blend of great people, the right owners with the right team and the right technology. And, I guess I use the analogy of you can punch or counter punch. And punch meaning that you're always going to be that leading edge, and sometimes that can have advantages, sometimes it can have disadvantages, and that sometimes the equipment isn't necessarily up to the task, and you have to go through a lot of learning curves, or you can go through that counter-punching mentality that is let that first model come out just like a new car model that has all the bugs, and they get it fixed and then come out with a second model right after that, shortly thereafter. And so it depends on the type of technology where we're going to be a puncher or counter-puncher. But, we have very leading-edge printers and a POS system that enables us to go from the web to an order to automating the process workflow and different things like that. It helps us manage our productivity and our make sure our operations are really efficient. But the bottom line is that, our equipment allows us to really print some really stunning graphics. And so we have some nice partnerships. Yeah, we have some nice partnerships that, they give us loaner equipment so we can really put them through our paces and then make solid recommendations to our owners.
It must be a great reaction for the customers. I mean, when they get to see the final product, Larry, and they're probably like, wow, because it really, in your business, you're playing such an important role because what you're doing is, it really involves a perception, that's being passed on to ultimately, the customer, and I imagine when your customers see the final product, I'm sure they're nothing but wowed, aren't they?
Well, I really love that word. Wow is really what we're looking for sure.
Yeah.
We whether we put something on the floor, and what's interesting is, everybody's on their phones now, and so floor graphics have become very, very big, and be able to catch somebody's eye as they're looking at their phone, and again they notice it, and then they get moved to action or get directed in the way to where they can make a buy decision or something like that is really kind of exciting, and some of our graphics, some of the output that we can create is really that wow factor, and that's what we're looking for.
What's the industry like today, Larry? How big is your industry today?
Well, for the large format segment, it's really kind of hard to tell. We haven't really been able to nail down through other sources exactly how big this industry is, but I've seen estimates that we're, around $25 billion. Of course, the entire printing segment is much, much bigger than that. We're a sliver of the entire print market, but we really like this wide format segment. It's growing. It's one of the few segments in print that's actually growing, and again, it goes back to so many of the marketing opportunities today have gone digital, and I like the example I use with the floor graphics. Well, you just got to reach the customer in a different way, and so I think we can do that, whether it be a vehicle wrap or a trade show where people are really paying attention to what's being displayed, or again, down to the floor. We can really still attract eyeballs where a lot of the marketing has gone digitally online, and then print's no longer a player. So we really like our segment a lot.
I teach marketing for Purdue Global, Larry, and one of the things we were talking about last night is features and benefits. Maybe you could talk a little bit, about some of the benefits of joining the SpeedPro system, for your franchisees.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. So first of all, I would say that the network. And so when I think about networks, I really think about Facebook a little bit. And I use the analogy of Facebook quite a bit that, and even the old fax machines, I hate to date myself a little bit, but, with only one fax machine and only one person on Facebook, it really doesn't mean anything.
Right.
There's no connection. There's nothing you can do on it. And so
a
big network like ours that we have a sharing entrepreneurial model, the network is incredibly important. So we have a really great culture about sharing best practices, and we're cooperating with each other, not competing with each other. A lot of our studios help them complete the projects, and we may have a big client in Florida that has installations up in New York, and so our studios will work together to make sure that product is printed correctly and installed correctly. And then we've got an awful lot of marketing muscle from not only our pooled promotional fund, but also our individual studios working together to increase the brand awareness. And then so those are two of the big things. And then the know-how. It's a simple business as far as how to describe it, but there can be some complications in the printing side, and so there's a lot of know-how that we have not only from the production side, but just from our general business expertise, and we have great training and a great opportunity we have something we call Ask the Owners, where our studio will have a particular question about a particular project or a particular media, and we'll have 10, 20 owners answering those questions for that owner. And so we just kind of cut through the clutter and just make it much easier. And then the last thing we kind of already talked about, but I just keep returning to that, is the entrepreneurial model. We really bring out the creativity in our owners. It's perfect for the owner who really wants to really think about from the marketing and sales point of view and really get creative. And our training and support programs really help them understand how to work within that B2B entrepreneurial space.
What were your franchisees, doing, prior to becoming franchisees, Larry? Do you look for any specific characteristics or traits in your franchisees? Do a lot of them come from corporate America? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, an awful lot of them do come from corporate America, Marty. And so we have a lot of A-type driven individuals that have run either big divisions in their company. What's interesting is they bring that experience from, really understanding how to work with people, how to network, how to get things done through people and their teams. And now they kind of want to take that first step away from corporate life and be an owner. And so, again, our best owners love to network. They're great at relationship building and selling, and they're problem solvers as well. And so we have to teach them a lot about the business, and a lot of our training is geared towards helping them make that conversion from that corporate life, like I had before, the corporate life, and move into running your own business with that support system behind you.
It's like you say, they're problem solvers, Larry, and I guess that's got to be, one of the things that they enjoy doing, is they're really solving a problem for, their customers. And it must be interesting because I imagine every day is a little bit different for, your franchisees. Maybe you could talk about, what is a typical day like for your franchisees?
Well, first of all, our typical day is going to be generally about a 9 to 5. I mean, again, obviously it can change a little bit, and generally not on a weekend. So we're pretty much a business hours types of concept. But however, we have projects that are huge projects that require installation overnight or something like that.
Right.
So once in a while we'll have those kind of situations. But generally on a day-to-day basis, the owner is very active in securing the new projects with both existing and new clients, and then they'll work through their sales and production teams to provide the highest quality graphics that we can, and oversee the scheduling, the day's production, the finishing and delivery, and thinking things like that. And I really kind of look at it as our business is broken down into 5 basic steps, and so they oversee over those 5 steps through their team. And so those 5 steps are really your prospecting, you're selling, you're either manufacturing or producing, then of course you're delivering, and then you get paid.
Of course,
and those are really pretty much the fine steps that I think are really pretty simple.
It's nice to have that, keep going back to, that 9 to 5 lifestyle, though, for, your franchisees, Larry, because franchising is really, it's a means to an end. I think a lot of people, they get into their own business so, they could spend more time with their families. The motivation is always, I guess, a little bit different for everybody, but it's nice to have that. A lot of times in franchising, I think people get into it, but they get into the wrong franchise. They'll go into a restaurant franchise or, something retail, and they find themselves working more hours, and this is really a nice fit for someone looking to, not just corporate America, but to still have a life beyond the business, and I'm sure that's very appealing to your franchisees, isn't it?
It is, and a lot of them are actually, again, coming out of that corporate world where they don't normally work weekends and nights and things like that, like from a retail environment or what have you. So this still fits into that day part of their life, if you will, and having evenings and weekends mainly free.
That's terrific. What is the training like, Larry? I mean, do they come out to headquarters then? I mean, how does that work once you decide, that they're a fit for SpeedPro? Do they come out to headquarters for training?
Absolutely. And so we actually just revamped our training program, which we're really excited about. But, all franchisees, like I was, wanted to know the secret sauce. I mean, they want to kind of know everything behind the scenes, the basics behind it, but then, of course, through the initial training and then really more from the follow-up point of view, the nitty-gritties of the operation. So we have a 2-week training program that I find is really robust, and so we're going to bring everybody here to our Centennial, Colorado headquarters, and we hope that we're going to give them everything they need in those 2 weeks. So, for instance, week 1, we'll do an orientation, the history behind SpeedPro, and kind of get into the DNA, if you will, and what kind of makes us different and unique. And so they have that comfort level of knowing how they would speak about the company. And then we do a full day of financial management training, and it's actually been customized for SpeedPro and for our segment. And so it's not going to be generalized financial management. Is specific to our company, and it'll be a full day of 4 different modules as part of that training. And then we're going to do 2 full days of sales training of how to prospect, how to sell, how to do the follow-up, how to build customers for life, do role playing. So that's 2 full days of sales training, which again, if you can't get the old cash register to ring, then there is no business, right? And so that's really important for us. And then week 1 we'll finish with human resources, so recruiting and retention of the staff. And for instance, we just did our convention, and we're still tired from convention. It just ended on Monday, and we had a consultant in, somebody I've known for a long time, talking about millennials, and he was very clear about how us baby boomers have kind of created the millennials.
Right.
And I think I kind of forgot that. We sometimes complain about maybe they work differently than we used to and do today and things like that. And so really understanding the cultural differences and how we can connect with all work group people, but also, specifically millennials, since so many are in the workforce. And so we're going to spend a full day just on human resources and how to attract and retain the right people. And so that's the first week. And so that'll really give them a good understanding of us and how the business works and how to build the business and have the right people. And then, hopefully after a beautiful weekend in the mountains in Denver, we'll do this whole second week all on the production and the printing and our POS system and things like that. And then after that, we'll go into after the formal training, we'll go into the studios and provide follow-up and startup assistance. So that was a long answer, but hopefully it was a good one for you.
It was a great one. Yeah, and it's interesting, talking about millennials, Larry, because I've had the same experience, of course, in teaching for Purdue Global, as we have a lot of students in that millennial group, and they are different, aren't they? So I think it's great you get into the whole cultural aspect and human resources and things like that, because it's like dealing with a different culture at times, isn't it? So I think that's terrific. When I was studying your background, Larry, you have such an extensive background. So when I have someone like yourself on the show, I always like to ask, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because as you know, there seems to be there's so much out there today. It could be a little bit overwhelming in the beginning process when you start looking for a franchise. So, from everything you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd use myself as an example. And so I think I'd start that with saying, know your passion. So for me, I really did like what I was doing. I was in the airline industry, and I was looking for something kind of part-time. But I knew I didn't want to spend my life working for someone else and making somebody else's profit. I wanted to do something for myself. So I kind of had that itch to scratch, and I wanted to be able to prove to myself that I could run my business, but more importantly, my way. But I didn't really want to just kind of go it alone. I think I particularly work best under an environment of support where there's some of that the needed materials and know-how behind you, and then you just take it and run with it. So for me, I knew I wanted to do something for myself. I wanted that safety net behind me. I guess I kind of put in the analogy of kind of bowling with bumpers. When you're a kid, you have those bumpers. So I look at the franchise that kind of keeps you on track and makes sure you don't go into the gutter, but I'm still the one that has to throw the ball. And so, I looked from the support not only from the company, but when I look at a network, I really look at the other franchisees in the network. They've actually can really raise my standards and give me people to compete with and things like that, which I really, really like. And so, for me, my advice would be, find that passion. What kind of industry can you be you? And for me, I loved ice cream. I was looking for a sideline. It was really good for me to be in the Baskin-Robbins. But this is, at SpeedPro, we're a very entrepreneurial concept. So if you want every day to be different, I think we're a good concept to look at. However, if you want something that's very turnkey and, it's pretty much the same every day, then there's other concepts that run really well. And then you got to decide, do you want to do a single location? You want to do multiple locations? Different things. those are all things you got to think about before you make that decision.
That's great. I love the bowling with bumpers analogy, Larry. I'm gonna steal that one if you don't mind. I think that's a great analogy, for our listeners. So it's fantastic. And you make a lot of interesting points. Is I guess when you're getting into like the ice cream industry, you're dealing a lot with children and families, and I guess it's an important question. Is what customers are you going to be serving? And that's why I've always been drawn to your industry, Larry. It must be a great experience to deal with all these different types of businesses and be able to solve a problem, for your customers. And, I think that must be really interesting. So as the CEO, I can kind of ask you the next question, Larry. What is your vision, for the future for SpeedPro Imaging? Where do you see the organization maybe, if you look into a crystal ball 3 to 5 years down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I kind of feel like still a kid in the candy store. So I'm still looking at, going back to that wow, I still get amazed every time I look at some of the output that we do and some of the products we deliver to our customers. Like, well, I didn't know we could do that. And, different things like that. So it's really kind of still very, very fun, like a kid in the candy store. But for me, I think our vision and future is built along with our owners. So we have a very active franchise advisory council, and we are actively getting input from them, and a lot of our direction and a lot of our new strategies and initiatives are coming directly from what they see that we need, and not just us thinking that we know everything. And so, for me, again, I'm looking at them as the experts and really taking their advice to heart. And so, we're going to look at a number of different opportunities or segments, if you will. And some of those that we're not pursuing, I guess the one that we're not pursuing is what I call the commodity opportunity, and that's where I look at the low margin, high volume printing segments. I'm not going to get into the letterhead and business cards, and we're not going to take the company in that direction at all. But there are three that we really feel are right in our wheelhouse, and one is consolidation opportunity. So if you will, M&A with our existing studios, maybe acquiring other companies that would parallel with what they're doing today. We're not going to do it from the home office point of view, but certainly would support that from the studio owner's point of view. And then what I'd call the existing segment opportunities, so doing more and getting more creative, still more in our existing specialties and niches. And so we still want to continue to be the leader in that wide format and really dominate that area. But the other one we're looking at is what we call the innovation segment opportunity. That is going to stretch our offering in those high-margin, lower-volume printing segments that seems to be in our wheelhouse. We're, again, going back to the consultative selling and opportunities with our clients. So today in the U.S., we have 135 franchises. We want to grow that by the end of 2020 to about 215 and 2.25. But I have every intent to leverage my global background and take the company global sometime next year.
What's the best way for our listeners, Larry, to get more information on SpeedPro Imaging from a services point of view and, of course, the franchise opportunity? Any websites that you'd like them to go to check out?
Absolutely. So we have our opportunities website called SpeedProFranchising.com. So that's all one word, SpeedProFranchising.com.
That's fantastic. And I've really enjoyed talking to you today, Larry, and I'd like to invite you back over the next year or two as you continue to grow, because I've been following SpeedPro Imaging for such a long time now. So it's great to have you back on the show. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
A great pleasure to talk to you, Marty, and I'd love to come back again. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Larry, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the host of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. We've been hosting Franchise Interviews now over 8 years, and during that time, we've had some incredible quotes on the show. In fact, to date, we're over 250,000 people have listened to our podcast, so it's really been quite spectacular. Today's quote comes from Terry Corkery of Franchise Works, and I know Terry very long time. God, we're probably going back about 16, 17 years now, was when I first learned about Terry. And he operates a website called franchiseworks.com. And we invited Terry on the show to talk about how to prepare for a franchise show. A lot of times they'll have franchise shows across the country. They have a big one every year now. It seems like it's been taking place at the Jacob Javits Center in New York City. And it's really a fantastic event. But I asked Terry when we had him on the show, I said, what do you like most about franchising? And I thought his response was very clever, because he talked about that franchising doesn't really discriminate. It has nothing to do with your education level, race, gender, any of that stuff. If you know how to follow a system, then you could be very successful in franchise. But why don't we hear it from Terry instead?
You still have to be an entrepreneur at heart, but you still have to be able to follow that system.
Absolutely.
You got to be motivated and just realize you're not automatically going to make money. You follow the system most likely, but you're going to have to work hard.
Exactly.
And if you're looking for a change in the system, you really have to prove it. I mean, most franchisors are not looking for the franchisee to change, although some of the changes do come from the franchisees that make the business successful. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We were reading a story, it was a couple weeks ago, Terry. I don't know if you remember this, Don. We were talking about the filet of fish, the guy that started the filet of fish for McDonald's. You know, he was competing against Ray Kroc. I guess it was with the hula burger, which was like a pineapple, and you know, the filet of fish was attributed to a franchisee, actually.
A lot of those things from the McDonald's were attributed by
franchisees.
The franchisees.
Absolutely, that's something.
That was an interesting story.
That was a great
around
story.
The time of Lent, and they wanted to go with a non-meat type of food, and that person happened to put together a real nice fish sandwich that became a staple at McDonald's.
Sure has. Right, absolutely. Terry, what do you like most about franchising?
Well, I think it gives everyone a level playing field. And what I mean by that, whether you have and this may sound silly, a ninth grade education, if you been through college or high school or a doctor, it doesn't make a difference. Everyone has that same opportunity to be successful. Because to me, the key features in the franchise, in purchasing a franchise, would be, number one, the system. Obviously, there has to be a system in place. Number two, the support that's in place for you to be successful. And obviously, as the franchise grows, the name recognition. I mean, they're probably the three key features you're buying a franchise for. And I think it gives everyone that opportunity to utilize those. Just find that structure and successful business model. And I think it fits.
If you'd like to hear that whole interview with Terry, you can actually go to franchiseinterviews.com and go to our franchises listed alphabetically page and just go to Franchise Works. You can go to Franchise Services and listen to that whole interview, because Terry had a lot of great advice during that particular show. So I want to thank everyone for listening to our podcast and making the podcast very successful. And we have a lot more coming for you. So thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising from franchiseinterviews.com. Take care, everybody.